Jim with Palmer Johnson Power Systems. Today I'm going to be reviewing how to properly install a support plate on a Twin Disc PTO. The following PTO models are required to have a support plate installed. The question is, why is a support plate needed? Many models of a 214 and larger, which also includes a 311, has a substantial amount of weight hanging off the back of an engine. Adding a support plate neutralizes that overhang weight, and it also assists on side load capacity. By keeping that support plate with the unit mounted correctly, this keeps the PTO shaft parallel to the engine crankshaft, thus relieving stress on the pilot bearing, engine crankshaft, and the PTO main bearings. Installing your PTO support plate is specific to your PTO spec or BOM. There are critical installation steps to work by. It's important that you see your operator's manual for your unit that comes with it, or the CD, or some units are coming out with a barcode where you download the operator's manual. When securing the support plate to the engine subframe, it's important that any gap that exists there is filled with shims. Any pulling of that support plate adds to the deflection of the support plate and the PTO, which can cause early pilot bearing failure, excessive clutch plate failure, or PTO unit failure. Doing the support plates for power takeoffs does vary between models, specs, so it's important to view your operator's manual for the specific spec. Overview of this, one is we're going to be using a dial indicator off of a engine mounted iron plate. We're going to be looking at what is the deflection of the unit downward. Per your model spec, your operator's manual will tell you what the deflection can be for a maximum. You want to stay under those specifications. On straddle bearing PTO units, becomes more critical for the support plate due to the bearing arrangement on the main shaft. These units are not utilizing a pilot bearing, so the support plate arrangement is very critical and requires an additional dial indicator setting. So besides the top side indicator reading for deflection downward, the next step then will be side pull with your belts. That reading is measuring your engine subframe deflection when you're tightening the belts. On the straddle bearing unit for side load deflection of the engine subframe, if you are finding that is out of tolerance, your subframe will have to be welded with additional gussets to keep the frame from twisting. And again, with the straddle bearing support plate, shims are required for any gaps there because these units run an extremely tight tolerance for the main shaft bearings. Support plates for either style of units can either be face mount or a foot mount. It's good to note that the bolts used when going into the engine subframe should be size for size on the bolts with the holes drilled. This keeps any extra movement non-negotiable for that support plate. For further support, you can reach us at pjpower.com.